We're going to be talking to you about Core to Clarity, and basically my colleague and I are going to walk you through collaboration with developers and how it helps with writing product documentation. My name is Judith. I'm a technical writer at Red Hat, now celebrated a year, just 1 year anniversary last month. And when I'm not writing technical documents, well, I'm writing personal stories on my WordPress account, so do feel free to check it out. And then I also love karaoke. I love to sing, and I love to travel from time to time. I'll welcome Gerry to introduce himself.
Hi everybody, my name is Gerry Forde. I'm a technical writer. I'm working on the Red Hat Developer Hub documentation team. I joined Red Hat in 2020, just at the start of COVID, so it was an interesting time to join Red Hat. I've worked remotely since then, so I don't get a lot of opportunities to meet fellow Red Hatters, so it's terrific to be here today to have this opportunity. When I joined Red Hat, I worked on the Fuse and Camel documentation teams, and then I moved to RHDH in 2023. In my spare time, I don't know if anyone here is from Ireland, but I'm a big Gaelic football enthusiast, and I'm involved in coaching Gaelic football and such things. That's when I'm not chasing deadlines in the day job. So that's me, and I'll hand you back to Judith.
Thank you, Gerry. So just to walk you through what you're going to be talking about today, the main thing that we're going to be starting with is the question of why we need documentation, why it's important, how it ensures team efficiency, how it also ensures product clarity, as well as just user success, which is the ultimate thing for us. As well, we're going to look at some of the, the pitfalls that from time to time documentation team faces, and then some of the solution to this, which in this case, you're going to be looking at the benefits of collaboration. Gerry is going to walk you through his personal story from when he started as a technical writer, and then we'll just look at some of the tools that you can use as well to ensure proper collaboration and as well as perfect user-friendly documentation. And lastly, we'll as well look at some of the real-world outcomes of when we inculcate all this collaboration and steps into writing product documentation. So Gerry is going to kick us off with why is documentation important, Gerry?
Thanks, Judith. Yeah, so why is documentation important? It's obviously a question that matters and that should concern us all. It's not just about manuals, it's fundamental to our product success, our users' happiness, and our business model in a competitive environment. Documentation is vital for user adoption and satisfaction. So think of product documentation as the user's first interaction with the product. If they can't understand or use a feature, they may be reluctant to adopt it. Clear documentation empowers users to solve their own problems, leading to a higher satisfaction and self-sufficiency, and that in itself builds trust in the product. Crucially, for companies such as Red Hat, documentation is a core part of our subscription model. It's a key element customers pay for and they expect, and it directly may influence their decision whether to adapt the product or to buy it or to renew their subscription. So documentation, it also reduces support load and improves the user experience. Every well-documented solution is one less support ticket. This directly translates into fewer calls and emails for our support teams, and it frees up our support teams then to deal with more complex user cases. When users find answers quickly, it's a smoother experience. They're less frustrated and more productive. And good documentation reflects product quality. Our documentation is an extension of the product. If the docs are poor, it cheapens the perceived value of even the best software. Highly High quality documentation signals a high quality product. It shows we care about the user journey we care about the user journey beyond the code. And conversely, legacy or dated content creates friction and it raises doubts about the product itself. In a competitive environment, this could be a decisive factor that prevents us winning new customers or retaining existing ones. It signals that if the documentation is well maintained, the product is also well maintained. So then we move on to the challenges around creating that good quality documentation. So building great products is hard. Documenting them effectively so users truly benefit presents its own set of significant challenges. We face constant demands from our customers and our project stakeholders, intense competition, and a rapidly evolving marketplace, all of which amplify these documentation hurdles. Writers sometimes lack full product context. Our technical writers often get information in silos or late in the content creation process. And this can be compounded then by writer churn, various experience levels of writers, and the onboarding of new writers. These factors mean deep product context is often fragmented or missing. And all this can lead to gaps, inaccuracies, and documentation that doesn't fully anticipate the user's needs. Another challenge that developers and QEs, a lot of you guys here, you're pressed for time. Developers and QEs are intensely focused on building and testing the product, which at the end of the day is your core responsibility. With rapidly evolving products and external demands, your time is exceptionally pressed, leaving limited bandwidth for detailed knowledge transfer or reviewing documentation drafts. This means critical insights can remain tacit. They're not always explicitly shared with the writer. Complex information isn't always well translated for users. Developers and QEs, with all due respect, speak a highly technical language. It's your domain. Initial technical documentation is written by developers who possess more immense product knowledge than us writers, but maybe it doesn't always align with the personas of the typical users or early adopters of the product. And that's something that we as writers, we're trying to get inside the minds of our users. Within the RHDH team, we've recently introduced content journey mappings, where we're trying to understand where the user is in their journey, what content they want, where they want it, and when they need it. So that's something we can bring to it. So our users, however, they do need clear, actionable guidance, not just raw tech specs. So bridging this gap, translating complex concepts into user-friendly content, it's difficult without dedicated time and a user-centric perspective that the writer ourselves may bring to the process.
Thank you, Gerry. So Gerry has highlighted the various challenges that we face in documentation. And so the question that we're going to answer today is, what is the solution to these challenges? And in this case, I identified something I call the triangle of collaboration. And as you all know how triangle is, well, obviously we do. Well, on one end, there is the developer who builds, who understands the how the system is architected. On the other hand is the QE, who are the testers, who have a very good knowledge on how to test these features. And then on the other hand is as well the technical writers who come in as people who give us a very clear user perspective documentation. So I want to delve deeply into the benefits of this, how do you call it, the triangle of collaboration. And in this case, I identified 4 things. The first part of it is coming in as improving accuracy and relevance. So good collaboration is where, in a case where we find that there is someone that starts off as giving us a timely, informing us that there are new features that we need to talk about, and then because we do not know how well to maybe go about them as technical writers, we from time to time would go for this, sync meetings with developers just to get to understand more clearly what the feature and how the feature works. So here comes in clarifying the technical concepts, because technical writers cannot just, our work as technical writers is to just simplify, as Gerry had highlighted, that developers understand the very strong technical terms that users might not find really friendly. So we have to seek first for clarification of the concepts, and then later on to just avoid going back and forth, last-minute reviews, and we are running out of time when releases are coming in. We need to start off early with technical writers, first attending the meetings, sync calls with developers, just to understand in depth what is needed. And then lastly, we then foster a culture of understanding that there are developers who have a very good knowledge of what the system is, how the system is architected. And then we have, on the other hand, the Kiwis who are going to give us a very good real-world testing systems. They're going to show us how all these work. And then we are going to have as well, like developers, for instance, understanding that, technical writers have a skill of just bringing the technical concepts into life. So the important thing that we're going to look at now is Gerry just giving us, taking us through his experience on how in his time as a technical writer, Gerry, how have you witnessed technical writing evolving with time from what approaches have been taken, new approaches, compared to what we had previously in your time? Thank you.
Sure, thanks, Judy. Yeah, well, as I mentioned at the start, I suppose I've been involved in 2 very different products at very different times. When I joined Red Hat, I was involved with the Fuse Camel product, and then moved to Red Hat Developer Hub. So, if I look back on my early days at Red Hat, technical writing was quite a different approach. We, on the Fuse product, we would have sourced a lot of upstream content. So it was content that would have been created by developers, and we'd take the existing technical notes, specs, or sometimes maybe even just talk to the developer, and we'd go off and write the content as technical writers. But what we'd really be doing there is we'd be polishing that upstream content. So we'd be making it readable, grammatically correct, and consistent with Red Hat documentation guidelines and Red Hat support postures. So we weren't really adding anything to the technical documentation. We were just purely polishing the content as we would have referred to it at the time. So that necessitated then that we would have to have a series of reviews. So this lengthened the content creation cycle. We would have a technical review, and that may be the first time that a developer, they would have seen the content that we intended to publish. So, they may look at it and say, well, no, we've taken this meaning totally wrong, and so on, and there'd be a lot of back and forth there. So it was quite an involved process in that technical review. On that particular team, then we had a separate quality assurance review. So this was all done sequentially. So the QA review, would have been making sure that the product didn't, that it aligned with what we were offering in terms of support, and that the documentation was fit for putting in front of a customer. And then also peer reviews. At the time, we didn't necessarily have peer reviews, so that may not have been always implemented. So the documentation would have got released just based on those technical and QA reviews. So in terms of ensuring consistency with documentation, that step may not have been what it should have been really at the time. And then we'd finally published the content. So this traditional approach often resulted in catching issues late in the cycle or maybe even after publication. What we're talking about here today is a more collaborative approach. And when you look at the slides, you might say, well, okay, there's only 2 points less on the left-hand side than the right, but it's a bit more fundamental than that. That's actually a lot more fundamental than that. So the key here is that we want to build a new approach that's based on collaboration and efficiency. The developer and the writer collaborate to create the product content together. So it's not, as I said in the past, where the technical writer just went off and found out whatever information he could about this particular feature anywhere and then just produced some form of document or documentation to be published. So it means the content, by collaborating with the developer at a very early stage, it means the content is technically accurate from inception and designed for the user understanding. And again, as mentioned about content journeys and that kind of thing, that's what we're bringing to the table. So when we sit down with a developer at the very early stage, we can say, well, this is the user story, this is where the user is, this is what they want to achieve. And it just makes for a better, more efficient and collaborative approach. The review process that I mentioned, where in the past we would have had a technical review and then a QA review, that becomes a lot more streamlined. It's more focused. It's a more focused technical review because the content has been co-created in this instance between the developer and the technical writer. So really, it's not the first time the technical or the developer has seen this content, and it should make that whole review process a lot quicker. The peer review process that I referred to, that wasn't perhaps always part of our writing processes, it is very much embedded now in everything we do, and it's non-negotiable. Every piece of content that Red Hat publishes as product documentation undergoes a peer review. So that ensures that the content is consistent with Red Hat messaging, it complies with customer content services guidelines, and it's user-focused. Because we've done this content journey at the start, our fellow peer reviewers know this is what we're looking at, or this is what this content should result in. Then we publish it. So this collaborative approach, it integrates documentation creation directly into the development workflow, leading to higher accuracy and faster delivery.
Thank you, Gerry. So we now want to look at the practical collaboration strategies. And the first thing that I want to highlight is, as Gerry has already mentioned, that the involvement of writers at the very initial time when the features are identified, just at the time when these features are being tested, is really essential in helping us identify the pitfalls that might help us to reduce the time that we put into reviews at the very last minute. So it helps us ensure that there is no friction amongst teams, because if you know from the teams, from the various documentation process that we have, is that usually when a QE is in disagreement with what we write at the very last minute, we end up wasting a lot of time, as opposed to if we have them we have a collaboration with them at the very initial stage. So Gerry, what do you think of how can we be able to sync with SMEs and QEs?
Yeah, so as development progresses, regular check-ins with SMEs, QEs, or any other stakeholders are essential. So these sessions, they allow writers to walk through features, workflows, and technical edge cases with those that are closest to the implementation. So obviously, developers, QEs, stakeholders. In RHDH, for instance, we have regular product demos where any new features coming up, there's a set session where these demos are shown to us by the developers. They often video them, and it's terrific. We get an insight exactly as to what's coming down the line and what needs to be documented. So it's those kind of sessions that are really important in sort of getting inside the minds of, or getting a view on what's coming down the line, what's in this feature, and what needs to be documented. The walkthroughs, they provide an opportunity as well for writers to clarify user flows and technical edge cases. And it's really important for catching things like conditional behavior or setup requirements that may not be necessarily documented in a Jira ticket.
Yes, and speaking of Jiras, so we have Jira's description, which really has eased the work of technical writers in this sense. We highlight the user benefits on this specific Jiras. We highlight where this documentation is to go in our documents, and then we also highlight the, we just generally make sure that this information is user-friendly. So we as well have doc office hours from time to time. For example, in RHDH, in our team, we do have cable calls weekly, which do help us to sync with various stakeholders, just to highlight the various, just to have clarity on our documentation. And Gerry, would you tell us now what happens after all this collaboration, and then we have the PRs? How does this come in?
Yeah, so at the end of this process, we've kind of walked through sequentially how the content development lifecycle works. We create PR. We use GitHub in RHDH, so we've GitHub previews. So stakeholders can see, well, this is the documentation, the step before we publish it on the customer portal. So it's an opportunity there for stakeholders to review what's actually going to be published and to give us feedback on that within the PR before it's published.
Thank you, Gerry. So I want us, through our topic for today, we just highlighted and mentioned a few tools, and I want to make it known that no specific tool is going to cut across for every solution. The tools can either make or break collaboration amongst teams, and as every other team in our team, we chose to work with certain tools that have eased collaboration for us. For instance, we were mentioning Jiras. So Jiras, we have a way of collaborating as well. We can add comments in there. We have Confluence as well, which permits us to as well add comments there. We have Slack channels that also give us a platform for communicating across the team. Again, we do have besides, we have GitHub, which as we mentioned, as Gerry just mentioned, now that when we create PRs, it's very easy for anybody to just chip in, bring in the idea. Collaborators can as well just bring in the ideas and corrections on the respective PRs. So Gerry, take us through the real world outcomes of when all this is implemented.
Yeah, so what's the point in doing all this? What are the real world outcomes that we expect? So when we address these challenges and truly invest in documentation, we can see tangible, positive results across the board. By directly engaging with product teams and understanding the why, our documentation becomes sharper, more comprehensive, and definitely more technically accurate. It builds greater confidence in the content accuracy across the board for developers, technical writers, and project stakeholders. It can result in lower support ticket volume. When documentation is clear and comprehensive, users can find answers themselves. And this directly translates into a noticeable drop-off in support tickets and a significant reduction in technical documentation errors, which we don't like seeing at all, but it does happen. And it frees up our support team for more complex user issues. It can also provide for better onboarding for users. Well-structured and easy to follow documentation significantly speeds up the onboarding experience, not just for our customers, but also for developers, technical writers, and other stakeholders. Everyone can get started faster, understand processes more quickly, and become productive sooner. When developers and technical writers see their insights effectively translated into useful, high-quality documentation, they feel a stronger sense of ownership in that product documentation. And this fosters a positive feedback loop, leading to improved engagement and willingness to create and own the content that they produce, knowing that it's made a real impact.
Thank you, Gerry. So as we come to a close of this presentation, I want to highlight the very key things that you should, that from what we've just talked about, is that collaboration is very much important for the success of our documentation. And again, we realize how much important bringing in developers and QAs and writers at the same time at the beginning of the initial stages when these features are identified and the building and the testing comes in is very much crucial as well. And then just to let us know as well that, you know, we have to start from somewhere. I know it's not something that you just wake up and have it up and running. You have to start from somewhere. And Gerry,
over to me next.
What would you tell us about, you know, the whole summary of why this topic is important to us today?
Well, I think we've touched on all the points, and really the key takeaway is that we believe, and that's the direction that we're heading in, and that's coming from our experience of creating product documentation, is that the developer and the writer really need to collaborate at the earliest possible point, and that, you know, that collaboration, it will result in more efficient and more productive documentation creation process. There's a cartoon put up here, and I don't know if some people here would know Hina Manwani, who is a technical writer on our team, and Hina put a lot of work into this. It was her kind of concept at the very start. Unfortunately, she's not well and she can't be with us today, but Hina always likes to include a little bit of humour in her slides, so I thought it would be remiss of me to take that out. So this is really just to acknowledge Hina's contribution to today's presentation. So I think with that, we have a little bit of time left. If anybody has any questions, we'd be happy to take them.
Yes.
Yeah, I have one. So, how do you guys manage versions of the documentation so that it aligns with the version of the product of your team?
The question is how we align the versions of the documentation to align with the version of the product.
The version?
Yeah, so how do you manage the documentation in a way that you have a version of the product that has the same version of the documentation? So we were struggling with that quite a lot. So that's the question.
Well, in terms of how we publish documentation, we have a different set of documentation is produced for each and every version. So like
we have it in one merge request, both the documentation and the code, or
no,
the same repository or different?
no, we don't. The code would be in a separate repository. We have a separate documentation repository, which is updated for each version. Thank you.
Thank you. We do not have much time left, so I'm afraid. Yeah,
We do.
I don't know if we have anyone with a pressing question. Sure, I'll take one from there. We have three, so you go first.
So we talked about involving the developers as early as possible, but at a certain point there is like not a lot of documents yet early in the development cycle. So how do you reconcile that with actually working on the project as a documentation person?
Gerry, you want to take that?
Well, we.
Oh, sorry. So you've mentioned that how do we, because at the beginning of the, when developers, there's no much documentation at that point, right? So how do we get to that point of, having.
Yeah.
No, sorry. Just Jirka.
So yeah, the question is, if you as a documentation writer come into the development process early when there is not much that has been developed yet, what do you actually document? What is your part in the code?
Yeah, well, like, where we're coming into the process, there has been, there's documentation plan, there's feature requests, there's Jira, and so on. So we're also embarking on user content journeys. So we do have that basic information. We know that this feature is coming up and that it will need to be documented. So we can get involved right at the planning stage of that feature, and we can join those calls like with developers, and we can understand the why it's been, why the feature is being created, who's it going to be used for, and what documentation will be required. So we may not be able to start writing documentation immediately at that point, but we are engaged in the process.
I will add that also at that stage, we also get a chance to clarify to ask for clarity on certain technical concepts, because also just to make into practical, give use cases that are going to be user-friendly eventually. So at that point, if there's anything that might be brought up by developers that might be crucial eventually for us to, at the time of documentation, we might ask for clarification at that point. I don't know if that answers your question. Yeah. Thank you. You wanted to go?
So I had another one. So you mentioned that you switched from the classic approach to involving developers and the QAs. How did we manage to involve those? Because there is a lot of tension when it comes to involving developers into non-development tasks.
So
was it smooth, or did you have any obstacles, issues?
Yes, so the question is, how did we move from the very traditional approach to the approach of involving Kiwis and developers, and what were the pitfalls of this, I suppose, yes.
Yeah, well, I think thankfully that was kind of something that we didn't actually have to actively engage in the case of our particular product. QEs and developers became a blended team, so that those two processes kind of merged organically. So it's not something that we've, as a documentation team, have had to tackle directly.
So I've heard a lot concern from the developers in previous jobs that they are just wasting time collaborating stuff with the technical writers while they could write code. So if you faced that, how do you solve that? I hope you did.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
So the question is, you've had concerns, you've had experiences of when there was trouble with developers having to clarify concepts to technical writers?
Not willing to
not willing to waste their time. They'd rather write code. So have we encountered this? Personally, I haven't. So I don't know if, Gerry, have you encountered this, and how did you go about it?
I can't say I have. Maybe we've just been very lucky with the developers we have. But I take your point, but I can't answer how we dealt with it because I haven't actually. So I think we're out of time, so thanks very much, everybody.